Mr. and Mrs. Austen were open-minded enough to let their daughter take whatever she wanted from the shelves. So alongside the histories and the plays she read, she picked up titles which some people thought quite unsuitable for a clergyman's daughter, like the story of Tom Jones, a lecturer's cad, as well as other steamy novels by Richardson, who wrote of sex and seduction. This rich mixture began to feed Jane's extraordinary imagination.
Jane began to write her own stories, and what surprises she gave us. There were man-traps, jiltings, elopements, unmarried mothers, disgusting food and a great deal of drunkenness. Parents were murdered by their children, and hungry children ate their mothers' fingers.
Mr. Austen took real delight in his daughter's unexpected talent and bought Jane her own exquisite mahogany writing desk.
Thank you, Papa.
This is the writing desk given to Jane by her father, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I think it shows his support and his encouragement of her work. He supplied her with notebooks, one of which he's written, "Effusions of fancy by a very young lady, consisting of tales in a style entirely new." And one of those tales was the history of England, illustrated by Cassandra for the amusement of the family, and a very funny picture of Elizabeth I, who they detested. And Jane has promised to be a partial, prejudiced and ignorant historian, giving very few dates. Throughout her teens, she turned out a stream of outrageously nonsensical stories and plays, much to the amusement of her family. They expressed the opinions and interests which would appear in her later writing: wit, mischief, irrepressible humour, and an eye for the weakness, folly and malice of humanity. At the age of 16, she wrote a savage tale of a mercenary bride entitled The Three Sisters.
I am the happiest creature in the world, for I have received an offer of marriage from Mr. Watts. I do not intend to accept it. He is quite an old man, about 32, very plain, so plain that I cannot bear to look at him. He is extremely disagreeable, and I hate him more than anybody else in the world. He has a large fortune, and will make great settlements on me. But then, he is very healthy. If I accept him, I know I shall be miserable all the rest of my life.
The mercenary nature of marriage was becoming an increasing preoccupation for Jane, as she saw one family wedding after another. 3 of her brothers made very good marriages. A good marriage, as everyone understood, was one that brought money. Edward, the lucky brother adopted by rich relations, was now heir to their estates, and he carried off a Kentish baronet's daughter. James, who became a clergyman, found the granddaughter of a duke. Henry, a dashing army officer, married his cousin Eliza, the rich widow of a French aristocrat. But Cassandra failed by comparison. She became engaged to a penniless young clergyman, Tom Fowle. Because he was poor, they couldn't hope to marry until he'd made some money. So she stayed at home and waited while he took a chaplaincy in the West Indies. The business of courtship and marriage, and it was a business, was crucial for women in an age when the professions were closed to them. Money came from a father or a husband.
Single women have a dreadful propensity for being poor, which is one strong argument in favour of matrimony. There is no freedom for a woman without money. My aunt was forced to travel to India to marry a man she did not know and could not care for. Her personal attractions gained her a wealthy husband, but the marriage was so contrary to her wishes, so repugnant to her feelings, that she would almost have preferred servitude.
Jane used her aunt's experience in a story she began when she was 16, making her heroine, Catherine, ask indignantly,
"Do you call it lucky for a girl of genius and feeling to be sent in quest of a husband to Bengal? To be married there to a man whose disposition she has no opportunity of judging till judgment is of no use to her, who may be a tyrant or a fool or both for what she knows to the contrary.
Jane lived in a world where it was universally acknowledged that marriage was a market, and this was to become the central theme of her novels. In Pride and Prejudice, Mrs. Bennet spends her entire life scheming to marry off her 5 girls to the richest possible candidates.
My dear, Mr. Bennet, wonderful news! Netherfield Park is let at last!
Is it?
Yes, it is, for I have just had it from Mrs. Long. And do you not want to know who has taken it?
You want to tell me, and I have no objection to hearing it.
Why, then it is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England. A single man of large fortune, my dear. He came down on Monday in a chaise and four to see the place. His name is Bingley, and he will be in possession by Michaelmas, and he has 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls.
How so? How can it affect them?
Oh, Mr. Bennet, how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I'm thinking of his marrying one of them. For a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. Yes, he must indeed. And who better than one of our 5 girls?
What a fine joke if you were to choose me.
Or me?
Although Jane recognised that marriage was all about money, at one stage in her life, a part of her still believed she could find true love. Here, Jane has written future imaginary husbands in her father's parish register. We have Henry Frederick Howard Fitzwilliam of London, married to Jane Austen. Edmund Arthur William Mortimer of Liverpool, married to Jane Austen. And then, spanning the social spectrum, we have Jack Smith, married to Jane Smith.
With Cassandra, there was no problem. I could see her future, settled with her own family. But with Jane, the Lord only knew where life would take her. Still, we had to hope a suitable young man might appear.